I want you to close your eyes for a second. We're going on a little trip.
Okay.
Imagine you are standing in a dimly lit room somewhere in central Java. It's, let's say, 3 o'clock in the morning. The air is thick, it's oppressive, and it smells intensely of burning charcoal, sulfur, and sweet incense. It's hot.
Yeah.
There is a rhythmic, almost hypnotic sound filling the space, clang, clang, clang.
Yeah.
You are standing in what's called a basalon, a traditional sacred forge.
Right.
And the man working the bellows and the hammer, the Empu, he isn't just making a tool. He's in a trance. He hasn't slept in 24 hours. He's been fasting, maybe eating only white rice for days. He is chanting a mantra under his breath, and with every single rhythmic exhale, he strikes a piece of glowing metal that, if the legends are true, literally fell from the sky.
It is an incredibly evocative image, isn't it? And you are so right to focus on the atmosphere first.
Yeah.
Because for the Javanese, this was never just manufacturing. It wasn't a factory floor. It was, and it still is, a spiritual ritual. Absolutely. The Empu is not just a blacksmith. He is a priest, he's a scientist, and an artist all rolled into one. He's basically birthing a sentient entity in that fire.
Exactly. Birthing something.
Wow.
And that is what we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into the Indonesian Keris.
Yes.
And I have to be honest, before I read through this massive stack of research, I just thought of it as that weighty dagger you see in museums, or maybe an action movie.
That's what most people think, yeah.
But the sources we have today, we're talking metallurgical studies, cultural anthropology, UNESCO reports, they paint a picture of something that is doing a lot more heavy lifting than just being a sharp object.
It's significantly more than a weapon. In fact, calling it a weapon or even a dagger almost misses the point entirely.
Yeah.
It's like calling a cathedral just a stone building. I mean, technically it's true, but you're missing the entire soul of the thing.
Huh.
The sources make it very clear that while the Keris has a sharp point, and yes, it can be used for defense, its primary function is as a spiritual vessel.
A vessel.
It's a bridge between the physical world and the metaphysical world. It's a masterpiece of alloy chemistry that was centuries ahead of its time, and it is a tangible representation of Indonesian cultural identity.
Okay, so that's the mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are going to debunk the idea that this is just a knife.
Exactly.
You're going to look at it through two specific lenses. First, the hard science, the metallurgy, the chemistry, the X-ray fluorescence analysis that tells us what is actually going on inside that metal.
And the nuts and bolts.
Right. And second, the spiritual and cultural lens, the Javanese philosophy, the animism, and the sheer magic that people believe lives inside these blades.
And the fascinating thing, the thing that really hooked me in all the research, is that you actually cannot separate those two lenses.
Oh, and
The
how?
science explains the magic, and the magic drove the science. You just can't understand one without the other. They're intertwined.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's start with the most famous claim about these blades,
Yeah.
the cosmic connection. I mentioned metal falling from the sky in the intro. Is it true that Keris blades are made from meteorites? Because that sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It does, doesn't it? The legend of heavenly iron.
Yeah.
And it is pervasive belief, and it centers largely on a specific historical event. We have to go back to 1797.
Good.
A massive iron meteorite fell near the Prambanan temple complex in central Java.
And Prambanan is that huge ancient Hindu temple site, right? Like a really big deal.
The biggest. It's a 9th century temple dedicated to the Trimurti Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So context is everything here.
Oh.
You have this star metal falling right next to one of the most sacred sites in the entire land. In the Javanese worldview, that is not a coincidence.
Oh, yeah.
That is a delivery. That is a supply drop from the cosmos.
So the local ruler, the Susuhunan, must have just flipped out.
The Susuhunan of Surakarta treated this meteorite as an unbelievably sacred object. It was excavated and brought to the palace. It wasn't just put in a museum. It became a reservoir of holy material.
A reservoir.
The Empu, the royal smiths, were instructed to incorporate this celestial material into their blades. They were literally forging the heavens into the weapon of the king.
So it's true. They are made of space rocks.
Well, this is where we have to put on our lab coats and, look at the actual data.
Okay, here we go.
We have a study here from the Weltmuseum Wien in Vienna. They used X-ray fluorescence and neutron analysis to look at a chemical composition of historical blades.
Oh.
They wanted to see if the chemistry actually backed up the legend.
There's always nuance with you. I can feel a but coming.
It is nuanced. The Prambanan meteorite is absolutely real, and fragments of it were definitely used. But
Right.
it was incredibly rare. It was an exotic, prestigious material reserved for the highest nobility.
For the king's blades.
For the king and his inner circle, yeah.
Yeah.
The study analyzed a selection of high-status blades, specifically looking for high nickel and cobalt ratios that matched the meteorite.
And what did they find?
They found that out of the blades tested, and these were blades that were suspected to be meteoritic, only about 1 in 5 actually had that cosmic signature.
Only 1 in 5?
Right.
Wow, that's just 20%. So the vast majority were. What?
Correct.
Just regular iron?
Well, not just regular iron. And this leads us into the actual science of the alloy, which is fascinating in its own right.
Okay.
See, the defining characteristic of a keris is the pamor, that beautiful pattern on the blade. To get that pattern, you need contrast. You need 2 different types of metal interacting.
Like mixing chocolate and vanilla dough to get a marble cake.
Roughly, yes. That's a good way to put it. You need one metal that stays bright and one that turns dark.
Right.
The bright metal is nickel. The dark metal is iron. Now, meteoric iron like that Prambanan rock is naturally very rich in nickel.
Oh, I see.
It has about 4 to 5% nickel content.
Okay, so nature mixed the alloy already for them up in space.
Exactly. Now, compare that to terrestrial iron, the stuff you dig out of the ground in Indonesia. The most famous source is the Luwu ore from Sulawesi. That ore typically has only about 0.4% nickel.
That is a huge difference, 5% versus 0.4%.
Massive. So the meteoritic iron was prized not just because it came from the stars, though that spiritual manna was crucial for the Empu, but because scientifically, chemically, it created the most vivid, beautiful, high-contrast patterns.
It was just better material for the job.
It was the best material for the job. But since meteorites don't fall every day, the smiths had to innovate.
So when they couldn't get the star metal, when they exhausted the Prambanan supply, what did they do?
They became masters of sourcing. As the colonial era progressed and modernization set in, traditional sources became scarce. We have reports of smiths using scrap metal, nickel sheets, and even, and get this is documented, bicycle frames.
Wait, bicycle frames? Like a Schwinn?
More likely a gazelle, probably, given the Dutch colonial influence.
It's okay.
But yes, in the early 20th century, imported bicycles were made of high-quality steel that often contained a significant amount of nickel for durability and rust resistance.
Oh.
If you're an Empu in 1920 and you need to create that sacred contrast to honor the tradition and the meteorite is gone, you melt down the bicycle.
That is incredible. From meteorites to bicycles,
Yeah.
it sounds almost sacrilegious,
Yeah.
but it's actually pure adaptability.
It shows that the tradition is alive. It's not about the purity of the source material itself. It's about the transformation of the material.
Right.
Whether it fell from space or came from a factory in Europe, the Empu transforms it into something sacred through the fire and his intention.
Okay, let's talk about that transformation process.
Yeah.
Because the structure of the blade isn't just a solid chunk of metal, right? It's not like they just pour liquid metal into a mold.
Oh, no, never casting. A keris is a composite laminate. Think of it as a sandwich, a very dangerous, sharp sandwich.
Okay.
The core, called the slurrock, is a piece of hard, high-carbon steel. This is the part that forms the actual cutting edge. It can be sharpened to a razor point, but high-carbon steel is brittle. If you made the whole sword out of it, it might just snap on impact.
Right, a glass cannon.
Exactly. So they sandwich that hard core between layers of the Pamor material, that mixture of soft iron and the nickel-rich iron we discussed. This gives the blade flexibility and toughness. It acts as a shock absorber.
This reminds me of the Japanese katana construction, the hard edge and the soft spine.
It is a similar principle of physics, yeah, but the execution and the purpose are different.
Ah.
In the keris, this process of fusing these materials is called Satan, which means unity, and it is not easy. Iron and nickel have different properties, different melting points. To fuse them, the Empu has to perform forge welding.
Walk us through that. What is forge welding in this context?
Yes.
When I hear welding, I think of a guy with a blowtorch and a mask.
This is much more visceral. It is brutal, precise work.
Okay.
You take your stack of alternating metals, iron, nickel, you heat it to a white-hot glow in the charcoal fire, and then you hammer it until it literally fuses into one solid block.
Wow.
Then you cut it, you fold it over, and you hammer it again and again and again.
And every time you fold it, you're doubling the layers.
Precisely. It's exponential.
Mm-hmm.
If you fold it just 10 times, you have over 1,000 layers.
1,000.
And some high-quality blades are folded dozens of times. We are talking about thousands upon thousands of micro layers of metal compressed into a single blade.
Incredible.
This is what gives the Keris its mechanical strength, but more importantly for the collector and the believer, this is what creates the canvas for the Pamor.
Okay, let's talk about that Pamor. Because when you look at a really nice Keris, it looks like, well, it looks like wood grain or flowing water or sometimes like specific little shapes. But you're saying that's all just layers of metal.
It is. The word Pamor comes from the Javanese word awar, which means mixture. It is the visible result of that layering. But here is the kicker, the part that really blew my mind when I first learned it.
Okay.
When the Empu finishes forging the blade, when he puts down the hammer and the blade cools, the pattern is invisible.
Wait, really? It just looks like smooth gray metal?
Mostly, yes. You might see some faint traces if you know what to look for, but the contrast isn't there. The pattern is hidden inside the structure of the steel.
So how do you see it?
The revelation of the Pamor is a chemical process. It's a moment of alchemy. This is the Warangan revelation.
Warangan. I saw that term in the notes. That's the arsenic, right?
It is. The traditional mixture is arsenic trioxide, often derived from a mineral called Warangan mixed with citric acid, usually squeezed from local limes.
Arsenic and lime juice. That sounds like a cocktail you really want to avoid at a party.
Definitely do not drink the Warangan. But chemically, it is brilliant.
Okay.
The blade is submerged in this bath. The acid and the arsenic react with the iron layers. They corrode the iron slightly and deposit a dark arsenic iron complex, basically turning the iron black or deep purple.
And the nickel. What happens to the nickel?
The nickel is noble. It resists the acid. It stays bright, silvery, and shiny. So suddenly, after this bath, the hidden structure is revealed. The iron goes black, the nickel shines white, and those thousands of layers pop out in high contrast.
That is the aha moment. It's like developing a photograph in a darkroom.
It is. That is the perfect analogy. And practically speaking, the arsenic does something else, which is also brilliant.
What's that?
It acts as a rust inhibitor. It kills bacteria and fungi. So it preserves the blade in the humid tropical climate of Indonesia. It's science protecting art.
It's all connected. Okay, let's look at the patterns themselves. The outline mentions two main types, Pamor and Pamor Tiban. One is planned, one is accidental.
Accidental might be the scientific word for it, but the cultural word would be gifted. Pamor Tiban means fallen Pamor, as in fallen from God. These are patterns that emerge naturally during the forging process without the Empu manipulating them specifically. It's the result of the chaos of the hammer and the fire.
Can you give us an example of a fallen pattern?
Yeah, the most famous is Beras Wuta, which translates to scattered rice.
Scattered rice.
It looks like grains of rice spilled across the blade. It's chaotic, but it's organic. In Javanese philosophy, because the Empu didn't force this pattern, it's seen as a direct channel of divine blessing. It's associated with prosperity, having enough food, peace.
Scattered rice equals a full belly. I like that. It's very grounded.
Very.
And the planned ones, the Pamor. What's going on there?
This is where the Empu shows his technical mastery. He manipulates the hot billet. He might twist it, drill holes in it, gouge it with chisels before folding it flat again.
Whoa.
By disrupting the layers in very specific ways, he creates geometric shapes.
That sounds incredibly difficult. You're manipulating the inside of the metal.
It's 3D thinking with white-hot steel. An example is Udan Mas, or golden rain. This pattern looks like rows of small golden circles running down the blade. To make this, the Empu has to drill shallow divots into the laminate at specific intervals, then forge it flat. When the cross-section is revealed by the acid, you get these perfect concentric circles.
And what does golden rain do for you spiritually?
Exactly what it sounds like. It's a magnet for wealth and business success. Traders and merchants would pay an absolute fortune for a good Udan Mas Keris. It was the ultimate status symbol for the commercial class.
I need to get me one of those, put it on my desk.
You might want to. But you have to be careful. There are other patterns like Pamor mirroring, which are diagonal patterns. One is called Blacksmithing, which looks like a woven coconut leaf.
Okay.
That one is for authority, bravery, leadership. It's for a commander, not a merchant.
So you can't just mix and match.
No. If a merchant wears a commander's Keris, the energy clash is considered very bad luck. It could bring ruin.
That leads perfectly into the shape of the thing itself. Because it's not just the pattern on the surface. The actual shape of the blade is unique. It's asymmetrical.
It is intentionally unbalanced. And this brings us to the philosophy in the form.
When you look at the base of the blade, one side is wider than the other. It looks, Well, it looks odd to a Western eye that's used to symmetrical swords like broadswords or rapiers.
Yes. That separate metal piece at the base is called the ganja. And in the anatomical symbolism of the keris, this is incredibly deep.
Go on.
The blade itself, the vertical part, is often associated with the lingam, the phallic masculine principle. The ganja, the base it sits in, represents the yoni, the womb, the feminine principle.
So the sword itself represents union, creation.
Precisely. It represents creation, fertility, and the harmony of opposites. The ganja is sometimes said to lock the spirit or the power into the blade so it doesn't leak out and harm the owner.
It's a containment field for the metaphysical energy.
That's a great way to put it. It really is.
And then we have the waves, the luke. Some are straight, some are wavy. I always assumed the wavy ones were for, I don't know, inflicting a worse wound, like a serrated knife.
That is a very common misconception, and it often comes from a Western combat perspective where everything is about lethality.
Right.
But in Javanese philosophy, the shape is all about the naga, the mythical dragon or serpent.
The naga. Okay, so the snake shape makes sense.
A straight blade, or a laris blade, symbolizes the naga at rest. It represents meditation, focus, stability. A straight keris is often associated with priests, scholars, or people who need unwavering mental clarity.
Interesting.
It's about maintaining principles in the face of chaos.
And the wavy ones, the luke.
That is the naga in motion, the naga swimming or acting. The luke represents wisdom, flexibility, and the dynamic energy of life. It's the fire of existence. It's about adapting to the situation.
And I noticed in the notes that the number of waves is always odd.
Always. You will find Luke 3, Luke 5, Luke 7, up to Luke 13 usually. You will virtually never find a Luke 4 or a Luke 6.
Why odd numbers? What's wrong with even numbers?
Because in Javanese mysticism, even numbers represent completion, perfection, and completion implies death. If something is finished, it has nowhere to go. It is stagnant.
Wow.
Odd numbers are dynamic, they are incomplete. They represent the human condition of constantly striving for perfection, knowing that only God is perfect.
That is profound. Finished is dead. I'm going to use that next time I miss a deadline. I'm just keeping it dynamic, boss.
You can try that,
Yeah.
but the specific number also matters. A keris with 5 curves, Luke 5, is associated with the Pandava heroes from the Mahabharata epic. It's a symbol of power and is often for kings or high officials.
Okay.
Luke 9 is for spiritual wisdom, so it's good for religious leaders. Luke 13 is for extreme stability and protection, reserved for the highest rulers.
And Luke 11, I saw a note here that made me laugh.
Luke 11. It is an interesting one. The sources mention it's for ambition. It's sometimes associated with obtaining wealth or, well, some sources call it playboy energy.
Playboy energy.
Yeah. It's for someone who wants to conquer socially, materially, or romantically. It has a very forward, aggressive energy.
So if you were a happily married accountant, stay away from the Luke 11.
It implies a restlessness that might destabilize a quiet life. And that brings us to the most critical part of owning a keris. You don't just walk into a shop and buy the coolest looking one.
Right.
It's a living tradition.
Let's go back to the Empu, the maker. Because you said earlier they are priests. The sources mention tapabrata. What is that?
Tapabrata is a form of asceticism. Before an Empu even lights the fire to forge a sacred blade, he has to purify himself.
Ow.
This involves fasting. There are different types mentioned. Muti, where they eat only white rice and water, no flavor, no spices, just sustenance. Or, more extremely, enjibling, which is a total fast, sometimes staying inside a dark room for days, focusing entirely on the intention for the blade.
So they are starving themselves to make a sword.
They are emptying themselves. They are removing their ego so they can be a pure vessel for divine energy to flow through them into the steel. They recite mantras with every hammer strike. The idea is to infuse the blade with spiritual power. This is why a keris is believed to have a Khodam.
A Khodam? What is that? Is that like a ghost?
Think of it as a resident spirit or a guardian entity, a genie in the lamp, but the lamp is a dagger.
Okay.
This is why you don't treat a keris like a decoration you hang on the wall. It's a house for a spirit. And this is why the matching concept is so vital.
Matching, like swiping right on a sword.
In a way. The energy of the Khodam and the energy of the owner must align. They have to be compatible.
What happens if they're not?
If you are a humble farmer and you somehow get a king's keris, a blade designed for absolute authority, war, and maybe a bit of ruthlessness, that energy might overwhelm you. It could cause sickness, bad luck, crop failure, or what they call heat in your house, like constant arguments.
So it's actively bad for you.
It can be. Conversely, a king wouldn't benefit from a farmer's rice protection keris. It wouldn't support his role.
It's like a magical organ transplant. It has to be a tissue match.
That is a brilliant analogy. Yes,
Yeah.
in fact, in traditional circles, you don't buy a keris. The word belay, to buy, is considered taboo, too transactional.
So what do you do?
You pay a mahar dowry.
Like a marriage.
Exactly like a marriage. You are entering into a lifelong relationship with the object. You are adopting it into your family.
And like any relationship, it takes work. You have to clean it, maintain it.
The Jamasan ceremony. This is one of the most beautiful aspects of the tradition. It happens annually, usually in the Javanese month of Suro, which is a sacred time in their lunar calendar. It's a community event.
What happens is not just Windex and a paper towel, I assume.
Far from it.
Yeah.
It is a ritual bath. First, the blade is physically cleaned using natural ingredients, often coconut water or lime juice, to lift the rust and grime of the year.
Okay.
Then it undergoes Warangan again.
They re-arsenic it
Yeah.
every year.
Yes. Over time, the contrast fades. The iron oxidizes, the nickel dulls. The Jamasan restores the Pamor. It literally brings the pattern back to life. Then there are offerings, incense, flowers, sometimes specific foods like coffee or sticky rice.
Offerings for the Khodam.
For the spirit, and to honor the ancestors who passed the blade down. It's an act of preservation. In 2005, UNESCO recognized the keris as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity.
The intangible part is key there, I bet.
It's everything. The object is tangible, but the heritage is the knowledge of the Empu, the rituals of the Jamasan, the myths of the Khodam. That's the intangible soul.
It's keeping the story alive. If you stop the ritual, the object becomes just a piece of metal.
Precisely. The ritual maintains the sanctity. Without it, it's just an artifact in a museum.
I want to zoom out a bit. We've talked about the magic and the local tradition, but how does the keris stack up globally? You hear about Damascus Steel or Japanese katanas or Viking swords. Where does the keris fit in the hierarchy of legendary blades?
It sits in a very unique position. Metallurgically, people often confuse it with Damascus Steel or Roots Steel.
I definitely would have confused them. They look similar with the patterns.
It's understandable because they both have those wavy patterns, but the science is fundamentally different.
How so?
True Damascus, or Roots Steel, gets its pattern from crystallization inside the crucible. It's chemical segregation happening as the molten metal cools. It's liquid chemistry.
Okay, so it happens in the pot.
Right. The keris is pattern welded steel. The pattern comes from the mechanical manipulation, the folding and twisting we discussed earlier.
Sandwiching.
The sandwiching. It's actually closer in technique to what Viking smiths or the Japanese swordsmiths were doing, but the application is unique.
What do you mean?
The Japanese fold to homogenize the steel, to make it perfectly consistent for maximum strength and sharpness. The goal is a perfect cutting tool.
Right.
The Javanese fold to create specific readable symbols on the surface. The aesthetic and spiritual purpose is just as important, if not more so, than the martial purpose.
So the Japanese sword is about the edge, and the keris is about the surface.
In a way, yes. That's a great summary. The keris is technically a weapon, but its primary emphasis is on being a spiritual interface. A katana is designed to cut through armor. A keris is designed to pierce, well, reality.
To pierce reality.
It's designed to influence luck, status, and protection.
That's a good line. I like that.
And we see this identity persisting today. You look at modern Indonesia, the keris is everywhere symbolically. It's in the logos of political regencies. It's used by the scout movement. It's on the emblem of TV stations.
It's like the bald eagle for America, but it's a specific manufactured object.
Yes. And it's still worn. At weddings, at formal court events, people wear a keris as part of their formal dress. It represents heroism, identity, and a connection to a pre-colonial past.
Right.
It asserts that Indonesian identity is ancient and sophisticated. And despite modernization, despite the fact that we have iPhones and electric cars, the empty lineages are still alive. There are young people learning this craft.
That's reassuring. Usually these stories end with, and the last guy died 10 years ago.
Yeah. It is fragile, though. The sources mention that true meteoric iron is gone. The old ways of fasting and meditation are harder to maintain in a fast-paced world where time is money.
Sure.
But the Jamasan ceremonies are still crowded. People still respect the blade. It's holding on.
So what does this all mean for us? We've unpacked the meteorites, the arsenic, the spirits, the folding. What's the final thought here?
I think the biggest takeaway is about our relationship with objects. We live in a world of mass production.
Mm-hmm.
We buy things, we use them, we throw them away. They have no story. They have no soul.
A disposable world, the ikeification of life.
The ikeification of life, exactly. Yeah. The Keris represents the polar opposite of that. It's an object that is born, not made. It has a genealogy. It requires a dowry. It demands to be bathed and fed.
Yeah.
It reminds us of a time when matter and spirit weren't separated. It challenges us to see the magic in the material world.
It's a paradox, isn't it? It's a weapon that isn't really for fighting. It's a scientific marvel of alloy chemistry that represents pure magic. It's a piece of iron that represents the soul.
And that is why it fascinates us. It forces us to ask, what objects in our own lives carry that kind of weight? Do we have anything that connects us to the cosmos and our ancestors the way a Keris does?
That is the question I want to leave you with today. Look around your house. Look at the things you own. Do you have any heirlooms? Maybe a watch, a piece of jewelry, an old tool? What stories do they hold? What spirit is locked inside them? And if you don't have one, maybe it's time to start a tradition.
Just remember, if you decide to start forging one yourself, maybe skip the arsenic.
Good advice. Keep it safe, folks. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Indonesian Keris. We'll see you next time.